Yes, we have the entity here in the present Earth's plane, and in the relation to same with those of the former appearances in Earth's plane, for with this entity we find that there has to do much with the present appearances related to former appearances, and the urge the entity received through such appearances. Under the influences then as the entity comes, of those planetary conditions that bring much change in the affairs of the often and sudden, and some for weal and some for woe, yet the will may govern these, yet there is that urge in self that must be overcome. While there are many ennobling influences through the Jupiterian and Uranian forces, and these come to ascendancy again in the present year, beginning in the fall of last year and extending over the whole period of this year, and especially accentuated in June and October, yet during those periods necessary the entity be warned of using the highest mental urge of the care and attention, would the best be brought to the entity in present Earth's plane, and would these be of enduring good that comes through financial and through the social as will be presented at these times, especially. Under the influences then, we find one of exceptional abilities in many ways, especially toward those of the nature of mechanical contrivance, and the greater influx then will come through those things pertaining to those of mechanical nature and the manufacturing and distributing of such products. The greater losses come in those things pertaining to manufactured or job conditions. Hence, well that such be considered well. The entity one who often acts on the spur of moment, without giving due consideration to the largeness of proposition or conditions had in hand. 1. With the ennobling influences in Jupiter should consider more those of the Uranian compared with Mercurian forces, or the mental development as may come through study of the influences of Jupiterian influence. 1. We find peculiar or eccentric in many ways, especially with the social relations of the entity. 1. However, who is capable of using such social relations to the good of the entity's being, would same be guided in proper channels. As to appearances, as have much to do with the present sojourn, and that with which the entity surrounds itself with many that have been in other planes surrounded. Then, in the one before this, we find in that of when, in the courts of Louis XV, and the entity then the henchman, as it were, of the cardinal in that court, André Hercule de Fleury, 1653 to 1743. And through this sojourn we find those urges as are seen in the present life of the distrust in a man or in those who put so much store in their liberality pertaining to religious conditions, and the personality exhibited then from this. We find the entity then does not mock at religion or religious subjects, yet desires what to the mind or the material would be of a materialistic viewpoint of such individuals. In the one before this, we find in the days when the peoples in Greece were studying the religions as were propagated by thought of the religions or moral teacher, Socrates, and the entity then in the name of Aaron, the astrologer and the physician. The entity in that sojourn developed much in the earth's plane, and gave much counsel to the peoples. Rather lived the life of the recluse, and only having the distance relation, or the hatred in the manner of the opposite sex, for in early youth the entity was in that position of misplaced confidences, and best friend assuming, Pontimus, the relations with the then closest friend. Ran finding relief, or the study as was set for self in subjects metaphysical and of the astrologer. In the present Earth's plane we find the urge for knowledge of universal and universe forces, and the mental abilities easy of grasping such conditions, and we would find the entity might have, in present Earth's plane, made wonderful success, mentally, physically, financially, through the study as an astrologer and astronomer, and mechanical contrivance concerning same, and may as yet manufacture those conditions and articles concerning mechanical designs and instruments pertaining to astronomical and astrological mechanics. In the one then before this, we find in the Egyptian country, when the first laws were being transcribed or given to the peoples under the second ruler, or the one who gave the greater forces in learning pertaining to all arts and designs of man to show the relations with the higher spheres, or relation between the creator and the created. The entity then in the name of Ard High, c. 341-9, par. 11 on the 6th of February 2025 saying, 182 found disfavour with king's favourites in later YRS, and was in the capacity of the soothsayer, or magician, of that court. The personality and urges we find from this, in that of the study of all things mystical and pertaining to the lost arts, especially concerning metals and alchemy. These are the studies the entity seeks. However, the development that has been deferred brings rather that condition in the present plane of the bungler when applied to such conditions, yet the inner urge of the entity is to seek and gain knowledge pertaining to such conditions. In the one before this we find in that day when there was the destruction to the elements of earth, Atlantis. Then in now the Peruvian countries, when the lands disappeared in the low places and the entity was left alone in the high mount to which the entity had then gone for its study. In the name then of Almu, in the personality exhibited in the present, the ever-fear in the deep recesses of self of destruction coming to many suddenly. Then, as to the abilities of the entity in the present earth's plane, and how to apply same for the good of the present conditions, in all we find the entity a seeker of knowledge, and often with ability to apply same. The use gained knowledge, and the monetary returns from same becoming the destructive forces, through the weaknesses of desire in the earthly conditions. Then, overcome these through the will forces, that may be applied in the material world, and use that will come in the next 12 to 18 moons for development of self rather than of degrading of principle. Give of self's forces, knowing the high rule, and the giver of all good and perfect gifts lie within the reach of those who would seek and give of self to those high forces. We are through.